Okay, well, I think we'll move straight on to the next item. That being the annual plan, 2026-27, adoption of the consultation material. Just for everyone's, to be helpful, I'll just read out the purpose. The purpose is to seek adoption of the annual plan 2026-27 consultation document and supporting information to enable statutory public consultation on proposed budget settings, rates, fees, and related matters for the 2026-2027 financial year. You'll be aware that there was a drop-in session on this, I think it was the 11th of February. So thank you for those members who came along and participated in that. We do have staff, again, back at the table to answer any questions. And I also, if you wanted to introduce it, Michael, and I also understand that you're thinking...
Sorry, before we go, Member Wilson requested that her vote against be recorded for the previous item, if you can see.
Okay. I understand with the A split into A and a B, and B becoming C just for legal purposes, which you might like to just step us through.
I'll cover that. Yeah.
And we'll make those changes up here. And I just want to record for the record that Member Wilson just wanted her vote against the previous item. Okay, so we have that minuted. Okay, thank you.
So, kia ora koutou. I'm Michael Burns, General Manager of Financial Strategy and Reporting, and with me I have Tanya Benjamin, who's our Program Manager, leading the work on the annual plan and long-term plan. And I'll hand over to Tanya to kick off.
Kia ora, thank you. So today we're seeking approval to adopt the annual plan 26-27 consultation document and supporting information, which will enable public consultation. No final budget, rates or service level decisions are being made at this stage. That will happen in May. Just taking you back to 15 December 25, this committee agreed on the items for consultation for this annual plan, including core budget and rate settings as set out in the mayoral proposal, proposed changes to other rates and fees, including the Waitakere Rural Sewerage Scheme, a refuse bin and bag exchange fee, adjustments to Rodney Drainage District and bid targeted rates, an increase to the residential parking permit fee and updates to some regulatory fees, proposals for targeted rates local services for the Mangere, Otahu and Otara Papatoetoe local boards, and the draft Tupuna Maunga Operational Plan 26-27. So you'll see the consultation document also includes early engagement questions to inform the development of the long-term plan. Feedback on those matters will not result in decisions through this annual plan process, rather will instead inform the future LTP direction setting. So public consultation will open on Friday 27th of February and will close on Sunday 29th of March, and will include a range of engagement opportunities. These include webinars, online sessions, in-person drop-in sessions, community hui, regional participation events and such things. We will also be providing online formats. We have a summary of the plan, a video presentation and translations of the summary into Te Māori, Korean, Simplified Chinese, Traditional Chinese, Samoan, Tongan, New Zealand Sign Language video, Hindi and Easy Read. And obviously we do also have an accessible version of the consultation document. We have already been engaging with mana whenua through operational forum, and will also be directly engaging with individual mana whenua iwi and matawaka entities. We will also be providing an online rates guide where people can search the proposed rates for any property in Auckland. So in terms of the feedback, this will be done in a range of ways, either online, by email, in person, or people can phone through. So following the consultation period, staff will compile all the feedback for elected members to consider in April, before making final budget decisions in May and adopting the plan in June.
So Thank you, Tanya. So our priority here has been to reflect those decisions that you made in December and to do so in a way that's understandable and accessible for Aucklanders. So following the distribution of an earlier draft and the drop-in session we had the other day, staff had made some changes in response to your feedback. The first was looking to be more clear in a few places about the cost of the CRL and its role in as the major reason for the rates increase, and emphasising that those are wider CRL ownership costs, particularly the importance of the interest and depreciation components of those. So we've looked to strengthen that, and also we've looked to reviewed the introduction of the local board section on page 15 and ensured that it accurately reflects the mayoral proposal and the December decisions with respect to balancing local board budgets. Finally, as the chair has noted, we've asked to split. You'll see that the resolutions are slightly different to what they were in your published agenda. This is due to, by law, the council must adopt its supporting information before it adopts its consultation document. And so we're advised that we can't do that in the same resolution. It has to happen in separate resolutions. So that's why we've made that change. And I think every year we forget to do that and have to change it at the last minute. So there we are. So thank you, and we're happy to take any questions.
All right, Tanya and Michael, thank you very much for that. I'll open up for questions. Oh, here we go. So I've got the Deputy Mayor, followed by Councillor Foley, followed by Councillor Ferry, followed by Member Wilson.
Thanks, Chair, and thank you both, Tanya and Michael, and thanks for the drop-in session. Look, I've got 3 questions. The first one for me is kind of the most important question, and I mentioned it in the drop-in session because I'm really concerned that we have the highest rates rise that we've ever had. So my question is in a couple of parts. Is it true that of the 7.9%, pretty much the whole 7.9% is CRL related? And if the answer to that question is yes, how can we tell Aucklanders, instead of saying on page 6, a 7.9% rates rise for average value residential properties due mainly to CRL, can we say 98%? Because we basically got a 0 rates rise this year. And we're doing all this work, and I'm trying to make sure that the one document that Aucklanders look at, which is the summary, really tells them very, very clearly that 7.9% isn't all the things that we want to do. It is not mainly, you know, I want to be really stronger in letting them understand how much of it is CRL related. So my question is, of the 7.9%, is it true that over 90%, over 95%, or all of it, what is mainly? Please quantify mainly.
So yes, the proposed rates increase is 7.9%. That does equate to around $235 million. The additional cost of funding requirement associated with the owning and operating the CRL once it's complete is around the same figure, about $235 million. That means that the other additional costs, because we do have other additional costs that we're projecting for next year due to inflation or other year-on-year fluctuations, are offset by any additional rates revenue we're getting from growth and from the savings targets identified or targeted by the group. So there's different ways you could do the maths. You could say that the savings and the growth covers all the other increases, and yes, you would have a 0, or you could say that the savings and the growth are covering some of the CRL. So, yes.
So, Chair, this is really important for me, and I think for Aucklanders. Where the hang's Bernard Osmond when I want him? We need to say, as a result of everything else we are doing, Auckland Future Fund, savings, value for money, Port's profits, thank you, Mayor, we have been able only to put a rates rise that is almost entirely CRL cost basis. And I don't think one circle that says at the end of all these other things that we're doing cuts it for me. Now, I'm tied because I have done this so many times myself, and I know that the delegation under C, I'm basically asking you to do a little bit more than a minor change, a technical amendment. And if I have to sit here and do it, another amendment, but I'm looking at my colleagues. If it's not clear to me, how the heck is it going to be clear to an Aucklander that mainly means all 99%?
Or 235 million.
Or all the whole, whole income source, because that's the truth. So have a little think at the best way. Chair, it's a political thing I'm saying here, and you and the Mayor, it's your budget, but this does not tell Aucklanders that pretty much the whole rates rise we are asking them to pay is for CRL.
And we put it in last year's 10-year plan.
All right? So I'm sorry.
Well, I think the officer's saying you can split it another way too. They can say, you could say 2% is inflation, 1.5% is for growth, that's 3.5% rate increase to cover those things, now plus another 4.4 for the CRL, and then you make up the others from your other cost savings and other initiatives. So there's many ways to split this, right? And I can see the difficulty you've had around the wording, but let's take some advice.
Okay, we might have to have a little break while we think that. Then I'll go into my next question. So where in the document does it tell Aucklanders that we've added another 20 million to our savings target from this year? It says the savings target is 106, but the point I'm making, where do we tell Aucklanders that we're doing good stuff on their behalf to save them money? It just says what the savings target is. So again, I'm trying to give Aucklanders confidence that the people around this table and the organisation behind it are doing everything that we can to make it easier on them. So do you want to have a break? It's just not there, Michael. I know I can't find it. It might be in the supporting documentation. But the point is, Chair, we need to front foot this stuff. We need to front foot the targets that we are doing to give Aucklanders a little bit of confidence that it's not just going to them. So, because my last question is, where are we saying it's all less than 40% of our income? In fact, it's only 30-something% of our income that's coming from them in the first place. And all these things that we're doing, when we ask them the question at the end, all these great things that we're asking for their support, it's all coming from well less than 40% from them. We're doing all these other things and getting the money in a different way. So, look, at the risk of trying to rewrite your document, although I did say it at the workshop, there has to be a very good Q&A that goes to every councillor, every elected member, that actually strengthens this stuff. Have I made myself clear?
You have, and we're team are currently working on some FAQ to provide to yourselves, particularly on those points about rates, and look to work with the CFO to see what we can do under the delegation to flesh out these points.
But actually, one more thing, if I may, supplementary, because Andy's just given me an idea, and it's actually a really good one. Mayor, let's rewrite your message.
Well, I could do that too. I think it's possibly a good point. I could make it more grunty there.
Yeah, let's make it clear, because the thing that's only his and we can't comment on is the Mayor's message. So Mayor, let's rewrite your message. Ross.
So I think, the wording of the delegation here is quite narrow around minor and technical amendments, but we can look to expand that. So you might add to this to approve any minor and technical amendments and final changes relating to the communication of the rates increase. We just added those words in there. That would give us the scope to work through those changes.
I'd be very happy to do that. Chair, thank you.
We'll add those in. We'll add that wording in. Okay, if you, Leslie, can I move on to the next? Okay. Councillor Foley.
Kia ora, thank you. My question is about, because during a central government election year, it's very difficult to get any sort of airtime or publicity around things like this, and especially because it's a little less interesting or exciting than, the past ones that we've done. So can you just tell us a little bit more about what you're doing, anything extra you're doing to get the word out and to fight for that space in terms of the media and just getting it out? And then also I just wanted to thank you as well and thank your team, because we have had an update around what you're doing for Pacific communities and really appreciate the work the team's putting on there. Kia ora.
So, yes, you're right that it's probably not the most exciting consultation document. I think the key piece we're doing that we've found to be successful has been working with our community partners, and in the Pacific community, some very strong community partners. They provide us access to communities that are often hard to reach, and that's a key piece we've over recent years lent on, and their ability to support our engagement across the community. And so there's a wide range of community partners that we've been working with, and that's a key piece that we've done for getting the word out.
Kia ora, thank you. And then I just wanted one more question, Chair. Did you say that you were going to be doing short videos in different languages, or is that just the written materials?
That's just the written materials at this stage.
Okay, kia ora. If we had the budget, could we do short videos? Because short videos last time were very, very effective. Is that an option, a possibility?
I think it's a question, if we had the budget, we could do more. We've scaled the budget for this communication, given that it's a narrow scope. There isn't a lot of issues here. It is a bit of a shoestring budget. So it's purely at that kind of trade-off.
Kia ora, thank you, appreciate that.
In the past, if we look at last year, some members produced their own videos that were highly successful in engaging the public, and we'd be happy to support any other members that look to do similar.
And Councillor Fuller, I understand there is budget for the LTP to do those videos, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, and as I said, if there's other things we can do at minimal or no cost, we're happy to support.
Very good, thank you. Councillor Ferry.
Kia ora. I guess just a comment / question around the point that the Deputy Mayor has raised, and I wonder if, acknowledging the constraints that you're under as staff to present a document that doesn't stray too much into the politics, perhaps I think the suggestion around the Mayor's message is good, but I think maybe some of the answer to the question is in the comm space around the media work that we do supporting this going out. So yeah, I sense a little bit of discomfort perhaps at the staff level about some of what's being requested there. So is that possibly a way forward?
I think so. I think we can do a bit of both. We can make some tweaks to the wording in the document, but I think the more effective way is through other constituents. Not everyone reads the consultation document and downloads it. There are other. As much as we would like to think that's the case, so we can make some changes here, and then we can think more broadly. What else can we do in the communication space?
Thank you.
The decision here in front of the committee is around this document, so that's the key bit we need to focus on.
Yeah, I think also the danger is that we have parts of our community who feel that they will not be benefiting from the CRL. I mean, my long-standing understanding is that, in fact, the impact on the public transport system across the city, even though, the stations and the link have been built in a particular area, is significant. So, but we did have some messages from some elected members outside the isthmus yesterday at the elected member Hui, that they don't feel that they are going to benefit from the CRL when, in fact, they're benefiting from other parts of the public transport system, which in turn will benefit. So I'm just a little bit nervous about how we message that. CRL's been a convenient scapegoat politically, and yet it does have significant regional benefit. So, but my actual question before that came up was on behalf of Councillor Patterson-Hamlin, who's unwell and unable to join the meeting. Just checking, you said before that we will have an accessible version available. So that's screen reader enabled, is that correct? Is that what you mean by an accessible version of the documents? I know there's been quite a lot of work done on making sure that materials are available in formats that suit the various disabled communities, and I wanted to thank the staff. I think Yeshi in particular has worked on that. I'm sure there are others, and they've really made a lot of effort. But I just wanted to check that specific point if you know the answer to that. Because there's a difference between easy read and screen reader enabled, and I just want to check that. I know you're checking. I'm also
on my
padding to
screen.
give you time to find the answer.
Thank you. Yes, that is our
Right.
understanding that the documents are accessible via a screen reader. Yes.
Great, thank you.
Excuse me, it's my experience they're not.
Speaking order is Member Wilson, followed by Councillor Filipaina, followed by Councillor Lee. So, Member Wilson.
Thank you. So it'll be hopefully short and sharp, for us all. Look, I agree with the kōrero that Deputy Mayor and Councillor Ferry are saying. There's some real concern, and you know that. I know you know that, and budget does play a part. But crikey, I'm hoping we can get this right. What I'm specifically going to concentrate on, and if it's through Matarai, an operational forum in itself does not represent the views of mana whenua. I would like to think, because we've evolved quite a bit these days, that mana whenua and mātāwaka require more because of the obvious take around what's happening here, than touching base with a group that has been brought together in an operational sense. So I would expect some consideration should be put around that. And also the kōrero that's been raised by Councillor Fully. I mean to say it's going to impact hugely, not only this, but the notion of the targeted rates for at least 2 local boards in South Auckland. And then you put this on top of everything. Every endeavour, in order to get the involvement of those communities, needs to be made over and above what the budget is, because it does require more work. So I'm just, I guess, putting in a plea there to ensure, for a matter that has this significance for most of South Auckland, most of the communities, that we do concentrate on those, because there are the 2 local boards that are suggesting those targeted rates. Kia ora.
Thank you. Yes, I totally agree in terms of the operational forum. That is not our primary engagement method for the annual plan, or will it be for the long-term plan? We have taken it as an optional extra, and taken that opportunity to begin to socialise these issues where we can, but we acknowledge that that is not the purpose of that forum, nor is it necessarily the right people there. So other work will be happening to engage more directly. So that is our plan. And then also, thank you, I'll take that note around those communities particularly impacted by the proposed targeted rates, and that extra work needs to be done in those areas. Thank you.
Thank you.
And so I just want to add to that, the So with the short explainer videos, they will be translated in various options, in particular in certain local board areas. So whilst there isn't a video specifically that's being translated as a whole, there is captions available at the moment that will be coming out.
Thank you for the question. Councillor Filipina.
Tēnā koe, he mana. The pātai is to you, and it's in relation to recommendations C. I've always been a process person and just wanted to know why the Deputy Chair, who's got vast experience in regards to budget, is not on in there nor haukura. That's simple as that. I know most of them normally have the chair, deputy chair, and haukura member just to sort of make those refinements. But that's my pātai to you. Kia ora.
No, I don't think it's a particular reason. I think it's just, for these sort of financial matters, we've tended to use these. They are minor editorial changes and tweaks. And we've sort of found this sufficient. If the committee's view is that, we should add more people to it, and if we kind of get into some of the communications things, maybe that's a bit broader and you might want some different people under that delegation, but that's clearly up to the committee.
I'm also just reflective a bit perhaps on the earlier item as well about the request to try and, have some input in those final tweakings and carry on. So if that opportunity exists here, I'd like to have a Kura member included into C. I don't know, Morris, do you need to necessarily be in there? Would you like to be? Microphone.
But this will probably bring it all right if you were to put me onto this, and it's something I've just, ever since I was a little boy, this is something I've wanted to be on, and it'll do the trick for me.
So we're going to, just for clarification, we will add the deputy chair and...
No, they'll put me on.
He wants to come in on Sunday and do it.
Yeah, after church.
Very good, okay. So,
I feel so much better if you're there.
okay,
Good man.
all right, move on. Councillor Lee.
You just take up the message alluded to, or the theme, or the concerns alluded to by Councillor Simpson. I am concerned about a credibility factor in the messaging here. The numbers speak for themselves. 7.9% rates increase, inflation at 3%, and it's all down to the CRL. I have a concern with that. If you go back through our annual plans and LTPs, over the recent years, there's always a reason why the rates are unusually high. And if you go back long enough, you have the drought. I think that was 2019, 2020. The drought was, if you look in the messaging we give the public, it's very much due to the costs arising from the drought. And then there was COVID, and COVID got hammered for a few years. Then there were the floods. It's down to the floods. That's the reason. And then the recovery from the floods. And it just seems that the CRL is a convenient excuse for the fact that our rates, despite Auckland, we're being told that they're in the final stages of being fixed, their rates are well above the odds and well above inflation. That's a concern here. So my question in regard to the CRL, because I think there's going to be a lot of questions about that. If I recall correctly, I think the council contributed initially 1.7 billion, and then there was a blowout in 2019, so the council was up for another $500 million. And then another blowout, which was revealed after the election in 2023, and that was we had to pay another $500 million. And now the ratepayers being told the rates increase is due to the interest, mainly due to the interest we're paying for that. Are we saying that we haven't been paying interest on the money we borrowed over the last 10 years for the CRL? Why is that true? And the interest has been delayed until July, or is that not true?
So that is correct. We do not, we fund interest costs during construction of major capital works from additional borrowing, and we do not charge those costs to ratepayers until they are seeing the benefits of that capital project. So in the same way that the project is not depreciated, and with the depreciation being funded until it is in service, we also, interest is, and borrowing is our way of spreading the costs of a project across those who benefit from it, and therefore we accumulate that interest into the total capital cost until such point as ratepayers are seeing the benefits, and then that's the point at which they will begin to fund the interest costs. And that's why there is that significant kick-in that we now, from next year, will be funding the interest costs of the CRL from operating funding sources.
Are you really saying that in past budgets, in terms of our borrowings, the interest paid in borrowings, a segment of that interest was sort of frozen, that didn't affect the rates in any way at all? I find that will be a hard message to sell, that somehow the people of Auckland haven't been paying for the interest on our borrowings.
Yes, that is correct. That's in line with council policy.
So, yep, so it's in line with standard policy for major multi-year construction projects. We pay the interest as we go, but it's all considered part of the cost of the project until the project goes live. And once the project starts delivering services to the community, that's the point we start collecting rates.
Let's be honest here, the people of Auckland are not mugs. You know, we're spending about $9 billion budget here, and you're saying that their rates increases all down to the CRL. That ain't going to wash. I'd be very careful about that, particularly in light of the Mayor's message that he started to fix Auckland and he's just about finished. That ain't going to cut it, people. Take it from me. We need to be straight up and honest with the people about what we're doing with their money and how it's being accounted. Creative accounting such as this, I think, is not sustainable. It's not going to help our reputation.
Point of order, under whatever the point of order is around disrespectful language or whatever. I mean, the aspersions that are being said here, I know this is not a point of order, but saying dishonest, I don't know where that's pointing at staff or the council, but this is the way we have always done capital.
That is abusing the point of order process. Speaking the truth is what we're here to be, what we're meant to be doing here.
Mike, what I'll do is I'll move on.
Don't be silent with bogus points of order.
I'll move on to the next question, which is Councillor Turner.
Thank you. Look, it's just my apologise for outburst and frustration before, just about these documents not being readable, by reading programs. I use three things. I use the stuff that's available inside the different programs and the council stuff. I use Dragon Speak. I use speaking emails to run through this. I note that AI is pretty good at, I always ask AI, can you read this document? And it usually says yes. But when you run it through just a normal reader for someone who's, I presume blind or dopey like me, these things are put together in pictures, in PDF, in JPEGs, etc. So in this proposal, if you run that through something like Dragon Speak, you'll run into several problems. One, a whole bunch of the text's been put into it in a picture, so taken from whatever department produced it, whacked it in there. Some of it then has got text in other places which has been typed in at a later date. You put it through the program can't see half of it, then you go through, what is it called, optic recognition or whatever it is, and then it runs into problems where some of the data has been put in a different format, or with a different, however the computer does it, one's a JPEG, one's something else. So by the time you're finished, you give up, and you don't try to, you'd be better off to expand it out 400 times and read it like it says cat sat in the mat, because it'll take just as long. So my experience is it's pointless to try to put it through a reading thing and help you understand it like that. Going down to the questions, please. Look, what I'm worried about here is the local boards and the business as usual sort of stuff. And during the drop-in session and other points, I've just tried to find out why we haven't got in here any further debate about the FERA funding and the shortfall that some of the local boards have found and or experiencing. And I'm also fully aware of last time where, once we put out this consultation document, that sets the scope of what we can talk about, and I'm told later, well, it wasn't in the document, so you can't go back there. So I don't see in here where the room for us to debate or to let the public feedback on the shortfall of the FERA funding to local boards. How is that now locked out, is it?
So just on your first question, we are making every effort to ensure that our software, our material is usable by those reading apps. The team advised me that we have versions for those readers that you're talking about. So, every year we're trying to improve that. So if you're having difficulty, please let us know as soon as we can. We'll look to get that. We're trying to make sure that it needs to be the way it's presented such that it can read. So if
I could just answer that, so do you have to request those? The point is that you're a member of the public, you get this information, you need assistance to manage it, to read it, then they don't know that you have to request the right document, so the front end experience for any person who's trying to put it through a reader app is that it doesn't work properly.
So we'll follow up on that and have a look at it. So I can follow up that. I'm pretty sure there's a couple of versions online, and some are designed.
So we need to advertise that.
Yeah. In terms of the FERA funding shortfall or issues, so we've looked and following the questions raised at the drop-in session, looked to be more clear on page 15 about how that works. So yes, we acknowledge that some local boards are facing cost increases that are making it more challenging for them to balance their budgets, and some have proposed service level changes or tweaks in order to do that in their consultation material. Also included in the mayoral proposal, and which was, went through this committee, was a note that the council does have tools available to it that may enable it to assist in this and avoid any, I think the mayor's phrase was significant changes to service levels, but that he still encouraged local boards to do what they could to balance their budget. So there is something in there in the introduction to that section. In terms of the scope of decision-making later, we've been careful in this document to provide the scope for you to make the decisions that may be required later in this process. You are not constrained, and particularly in that case, from supporting local boards as you see fit once we've got through the consultation and got the feedback from Aucklanders, plus we've got the updates from our budget refresh material. So when you come to making decisions in May, you will have the scope to make decisions that are necessary there.
Thank you. There is a thing called the Delivering Differently Fund, which the figures I've seen are over $600 million, and it's the bits and pieces I've seen that explain it. There's not a lot out there. Explain that it is to help the council deliver differently, streamline, to step between certain types of asset ownership. It looks to me like it's to fund exactly what the boards are facing at the moment, which is this fairer funding was a way of doing it differently, and some of the boards have found themselves at the wrong end of that. So there's no mention of that in here. There's no, I've been looking, I'm told in these processes, you go out and you advocate for what you want and you look for an alternative. Why can't we have this fund mentioned in here as an opportunity to look at fixing the board's shortcomings, shortfalls?
So the purpose of the Deliver Differently Fund was to support the council, either local or regional, to address the issues of the rising cost of ownership of community facilities. Identified through the past 3 long-term plans, we've identified that the council has community facilities out there that we can't afford to continue to own and operate under our current funding settings. So what Deliver Differently looks to do is to provide options for other ways of delivering those services through, for example, digital means, through collaboration with community partners, or through multi-use facilities, and to transition away from that asset-reliant service delivery. That's different from the challenges that the local boards are facing and have highlighted in this process, which is a rising cost of delivering existing services, be it through increased costs of maintenance or of energy. The Deliver Differently Fund is not to allocate to just continuing to deliver as we are. It's there to allocate where a decision is made to change the service delivery model.
If I may, last question then. So a lot of those regional, a lot of those assets, we fund the local boards. I'm thinking of the Waitaka Rangers local board, which is small, 11, 13 million. Then we claw back 80% of that to fund their portion of those full facility contracts, etc., and the open spaces and the built spaces, etc. And it is those spaces we talk about bringing the cost, wanting to do it differently. But like what I'm trying to say is this stuff is all mixed together. We are one in this, really. It's just the way we manage it. So again, I go back to the fact that any change to try to make, to try to get the boards are facing these costs because of our actions, and they are definitely because we're trying to change the way we do it. So why should they carry the penalty of what we're trying to achieve when we've got this fund that we could help them face the costs of those changes? Because I suppose I've got to clarify that. I don't accept that it's just marketplace shocks that they're facing. It is the way we're trying to change things to address new marketplace movements. We're changing how we're doing it differently. So surely we can justify going into the Doing It Differently fund.
So the analysis we've seen is that those costs that local boards are facing are related to existing assets and services that they're currently delivering, and that the cost of those is increasing, and for some boards that has increased at a rate that's faster than their funding. So in the long-term plan, all boards were allowed were given funding that increased with an inflation factor of 2%, plus some received obviously additional funding through the FAIR funding top-up. In some cases, their costs have increased faster than that 2% rate. In the past, where local boards didn't have accountability and decision-making for all their budgets, those sort of pressures were needed to be addressed at this table and needed to be covered from within the regionally delivered services or regionally identified savings. And now under the new model, local boards are needing to balance their own budgets. That's where the challenge has been identified. And as I said earlier, the Mayor has identified it, and we've pointed out through the consultation document that there are tools through this transitionary period that the governing body could look to assist in the final stages of adoption this annual plan.
Yeah,
Ross?
maybe just to add to that, so this budget is about getting on with the current program, delivering next year's budget and working through the existing program for Deliver Differently. There is a bigger discussion around, well, what does the model look like forward for local board funding, for delivering differently for the community asset portfolio. Lots of good discussion on that yesterday and through other committees. I think this will be a big focus for the long-term plan based off updated asset information, what's the portfolio, and I think a really good opportunity to look and challenge some of the thinking around how this whole space works through the upcoming LTP discussion.
Mr. Chair, just a little answer question on that. So I did see somewhere when in some of that stuff that this delivering differently budget is in the long-term plan is over 10 years, but the first 3 years it was going to be utilised the most, or how much have we used of that 637 million so far?
I don't have the figures in front of me. It has been delayed, and there's been some savings and some deferral of things pushed out. We need to work through how that model works, what are those opportunities. So it is a work in progress. There will be an update coming to the Value for Money Committee shortly on progress with Deliver Differently and how that's all working. And as I said, it'll feed into a bigger discussion for the long-term plan.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Williamson.
Can I wait till we do comments, because I thought I was the last person, but I think Julie should go next.
So you haven't got a question? You won't
I'll
comment?
go to
Okay,
speaking.
Councillor Ferry.
Kia ora, thank you. I just wanted to get really clear about this question about the interest on the CRL debt. So can I just clarify, what I heard before is that yes, we have incurred interest from when we took out the debt, which is some time ago, and probably we continue to take out debt, we continue to pay interest. But that debt, that interest was effectively capitalised and has been paid for basically by debt, because that's how we pay for capital costs, and also that is our standard practice. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So if we take out debt to build a library, we would follow that process as well?
Yes, we have a tipping point for projects over a certain size and a certain period, but a library would probably qualify, yes.
Okay. Sorry, I probably shouldn't have used a library, because sometimes they are cheaper than you expect. Plug there for more libraries. And the reason, I think, and so again I'm checking this, the reason that we don't start treating the interest as OPEX cost until the asset is operational is because we want to accurately reflect the cost for those who are benefiting from it, and you don't benefit from it until it's operational. Is that, have I got that
Correct,
concept
yes,
correct?
100%.
Okay, it's a shame Councillor Lee wasn't in the room to hear that, but it's on the record. Maybe he'll watch it back later. Okay, thank you. That helps me a lot. Again, that idea of not reflecting the interest in the operational costs until the asset is operational, that is something we would do if we were building a new library, any asset. Okay, and that's been the standard practice since Auckland Council started. which is only 15 years ago. It
Yeah.
may or may not have existed in legacy councils, but that's standard for us. Is that
For,
correct?
for at least most of that period, some legacy councils may have capitalised interest. Watercare have always taken a capitalisation approach, yes.
Okay, thank you. And I would like to also make a comment when we get to debate. Thank you.
Another question? Yep.
Sorry, Councillor Chair. And it may be just a question to Phil Wilson, sorry. It is on, I was a bit blindsided about the fairer funding stuff in the drop-in because there was like a discussion during the mayoral proposal that at least it wasn't the full 15, I understood that, but there was a discussion around helping the boards with that 6. What is the understanding? I know this is just approving the document, the consultation, and we can comment on it, but what is your understanding? The boards still need to be looking for savings and ways through, but we're going to try our best to help the 6 million, the affected. I know it's really difficult, but seeing the document, it didn't represent what I thought the discussion was at the mayoral proposal stage.
I mean, I think you've summarised it well. I mean, we want obviously local boards to continue working on this as a challenge, but we have undertaken to assist to the extent that we possibly can to help close that gap. Yeah.
So would your advice be, and I won't put words in your mouth, but really clear feedback on ways through and what can't happen from boards and I guess our communities, but we will collectively the next 3 months be doing everything we can to find savings and ways through to help those decisions in May.
Yeah, that's right. And that's the discipline we're chasing, not just because of a particular funding gap in this moment for the local boards. So, yeah, we're going to carry on maximising the savings that we can achieve.
Locking in sort of that 15 in a question would mean tipping over 8.5% or whatever it was.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think that brings us to the end of the questions. So before we go into debate, we probably should put this live. So
He's coming in.
So shall I move it, and His Worship will second it. All right, we're going to the debate. Any comments or debate? Thank you. Okay, I've got a list coming up here. Councillor Williamson, followed by Councillor Ferry.
Yeah, can I, most of all of this is I'm really comfortable with and so on, but I just want to talk about political landmines and how messaging can detonate them. For those of you who represent wards and local boards that are in the isthmus or to the south or to the west, you've got a train operating and the CRL will become an integral part of your constituents and more will use it and so on. But I wanted to point out to you, for those that are on the shore, for example, I'm looking at Hibiscus, Coast, Bays, Upper Harbour, Kaipariki, Devonport, Takapuna. From the last census, 0.3 of 1% of your people in the census said they use the train. In the mighty Howick local board, the biggest of the local boards, out of the 90,000 people who responded, 0.2% of our voters said they use the train. If we put a message to them that this biggest of ever rate increase we've had is because of the CRL train system, and the vast, in our case, 99.8% don't use it, it'll just create a mayhem for us to have to try to explain why are we putting that big cost onto you when it's not something that comes through your patch. And the same on those 4 of the local boards on the shore. So I would be really quite uncomfortable with us going too far to say everything to do with this is the train system to voters who don't get to use it because they can't. It isn't come our way. So I'm just putting it's almost the contrary to what Desley was saying. I think it's a good idea to say it's the equivalent amount of the increase. That's what it is. blame it all on the CRL, and I'll know that Bo Burns and I will just get bloody pounded by people saying, what the hell am I paying all this rates for something we don't have or use? I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Ferry?
Kia ora, thank you. Further to the discussion about the FAIR funding earlier, and I guess to clarify some of the points that Councillor Hills made in his question, what we are doing today is signing off on a mayoral proposal that we actually voted through in December last year. Now, I'm not the only one around the table who would like to see more funding put towards addressing the FAIR funding problem. However, what we're doing now is signing off documents that go to the community for them to give us our feedback, which gives us as elected members around the table the support we need to actually secure that funding in the next phase of this process. So I just want to be clear, I think it's helpful that there's been some clarification of it in this discussion today, but also last year in December, when we debated the mayoral proposal and adopted it, we did talk about fairer funding then. Delivering differently was an idea that was put up as a way to fund some of the gap and was not adopted for the mayoral proposal. But it may be that through public consultation and through working with our local boards and community partners, we all feel that we would like to do that, in which case we can do that at the next stage of the process. So I just wanted to provide some reassurance there. The other thing is this potential focus on the rates increase being the result of the CRL. And I guess in a way I sort of echo Councillor Williamson, but I would just encourage people to think about the increased capacity that the CRL provides to our whole public transport system. So you might think that people on the Hibiscus coast aren't going to catch the train, but they are going to access probably the Northern Busway. And the Northern Busway is an integral part of the transport system that links up with the CRL. And the same for those using the Northwestern busway improvements that are coming from further out west where they may not have a train service. So there's examples like that all across the region where this investment actually does pay dividends outside of where the train lines specifically run. The reason that I'm particularly acutely aware of this is because when I was on the Puketapapa local board, no train line there, but we actually decided politically to put aside our primary advocacy for the Avondale Southdown rail line to support the CRL because we could see how necessary it was to the whole public transport system. And so we shifted our priority from a local service to something that was going to lift the whole regional service and make that local service more possible in the future. And for those who maybe don't see public transport increasing as a benefit to their part of the city, maybe think about the fact that it reduces congestion for the whole city to have a more effective public transport system, and it reduces our emissions, with transport emissions being our biggest contributor to carbon emissions, and therefore the biggest impact that we can make on reducing the impacts of storms and those other climate risks that we face as a city from increased temperature. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, Councillor Filipino will be followed by Councillor Hills, then Councillor Turner, then Deputy Mayor Simpson, then Councillor Gillan. So, Councillor Filipino.
Tēnā koe he mana, thank you, Chair. Look, I'm not going to debate what the bulk of the report in regards to what's going out for consultation. What I will, however, is I will end up debating it when it comes back after consultation. So I'm not going to take any time of my colleagues around this table and the staff here around debating each of the topics in the report. I will, however, want to acknowledge the staff for getting us to this point. The most important thing is getting this through so it goes out for consultation. In that note, I want to mention two things, Chair. One is the talking that happens around this table when people are asking questions. The standing orders, I was going to end up pushing, I think it was about 6 times I was going to push it, because of the disturbance it was making when people are asking questions around this table, and that's 3.18.2 in brackets A. Because it's disrespectful. So I end up mentioning it now because I don't want to keep on bringing up a point of order, Chair, but it is disrespectful. I'm sort of unhappy that the people here that were doing it are not here, but I have no doubt at all it'll get back to them. Because we need to show some respect in regards to people asking questions. Chair, I'm going to finish on a good note. And that is to Ashley McIntyre. Ashley, to you, to Nathaniel, to the staff, to Shannon. I want to acknowledge them, Chair, because they have organised several Pacific consultations around Tāmaki Makaurau. The first one is going to happen in Councillor Short and Councillor Watson's area, is the first Pacifica whono around the consultation. So I didn't know the population of Pacifica community until both Councillor Short and Councillor Fully ended up saying there is a growing population. So to the staff that have for the staff who are organising these particular whono, I just want to mihi to you and say thank you so much for the support, and to those councillors, Councillor Bartley, Lotu, Short and myself around getting that information. So we'll be voting for this. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hills.
Kia ora, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just wanted, and I know as Councillor Philippine, a good reminder, we're not debating the budget here, but I'll just mention a few things. The one is just, local board consultation. I will trust that the conversation we've had with the mayoral office and Phil Wilson and the team, that everything is being done to look at helping those boards worst off, but understand there's a process, but they will have to look for the information to give that feedback. So I'm sure they'll be clear, as they always are, and we'll be encouraging our boards to submit. On the point of order, the point of order was a point of order. I just didn't have the name correct around disorder or disrespectful language. Look, when we call out incorrect, completely baseless, incorrect information when we're going out to consult, it confuses people, but it's actually, calling our staff liars, and essentially we're corrupting our annual budget. Like the Auditor General of New Zealand audits our books. That is how we do capital. This is how we raise that capital for these big projects. Still, no one has come up to me and said, if we aren't going to put it on debt, or we aren't going to put it on rates, or we aren't going to cancel projects, please tell me the secret way through that. So this, unfortunately, because it is the biggest project we've ever done, I would love to not be 50-50 funding with the government. It would be great if they were 100%, but we don't have that choice. So this giant project coming all at once is the interest and the depreciation. Part of it is the running of the City Rail Link, but most of it is the debt coming across. And if anyone has a magical way to not pay the interest on that debt, I'd love to hear it. So I was disappointed with the language. It was technically a correct standing order, point of order, sorry. But if we go out to our communities, we have to talk about the benefits for everyone. I mean, to Councillor Williamson's point, the Eastern Busway is 1.6 billion, and that's our second biggest project in the city, and there'll be even fewer Aucklanders from anywhere else using that because of where it situates. Actually, the City Rail Link will affect far greater numbers, so we just have to know that, in our ward, we're going to have the biggest part, and we've already had the biggest spend for the making space for water and the buyouts of any other part of Auckland. We relied on every other ratepayer and taxpayer to be funding that work, and we'll hopefully get stage 2 somehow in the LTP, and we'll be begging all of you to help us fund that for the North Shore and those areas. So this place is swings and roundabouts. We can't always get everything over the line for our community in the 1 year, but over the 10 years, all of us hopefully will get things for our communities And most of our community does not work based on a boundary. They come to the city, they jump on the train to the Eden Park or to a concert or whatever. So we have to look regionally, even though this will be a difficult rates rise for our communities. We kind of don't have a choice in the matter, unless we can figure out where to hide that debt. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Turner.
Thank you very much. We talk about, we signed this off last December and all that sort of stuff, but it's all just part of a stepping stone process. At this stepping stone, once we signed this off, I will be pointed back to this document every time I make a comment going forward. I will go back to my advocacy for the local boards, and then I'll be pointed to this document and say, well, it's not in there, and it's a significant amount of money, and therefore we'd have to go back to consultation, which will cost us, and we can't afford. That was my experience last time, anyway. You know, I'm shocked at some of the stuff I've heard here today as a small businessman, but then I'm also not absolutely oblivious to big business, and compounding your interest shocks me. And talking about interest, we're at $700 million a year. I presume the 160 million's on top. We're getting close to funding interest every year, which is 3 times the 300 million we fund all the local boards with. And yet we can't find, or we're not prepared to put into this document even an ability to discuss finding enough to fix the equity problems that a change in our policies have brought to local boards. You know, I've said in this meeting when we've talked about the fact that we're not a vertical structure, we're a horizontal structure. The local boards and us are in it together. And yet we can have confidential meetings the next day and find 30.6 million like that. And there's a fund there which could be called a sludge fund of 637 million, and we could help our local board mates out. I really want this document. I believe it's fundamentally flawed unless we allow ourselves to have these conversations going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Just, I think the officers also mentioned to your questions, Ken, that the consultation document doesn't restrain or exclude the ability to look at that feedback when it comes back and make those decisions in the future.
Mr. Chair, I understand that's what they say, but last time round, every time I knocked on an office door and asked questions about going forward, the next stepping stone, I was pointed back, no, sorry, that's out of scope.
Okay, well, it's in scope. So going on to the next, Deputy Mayor Simpson.
Oh, thanks, Chair. Look, I think I made my point in the questions, but I suppose what I will say in support of this document is, look, the rates increase was signalled in our long-term plan, and I really just want to be very clear of the drivers behind it, Chair, because I'm not sure that your comments are 100%. The annual operating cost for CRL is projected to be 235 million. That's Auckland Transport operating costs for services and stations. 26 million. Interest 167, and depreciation 42. This is the same amount as delivered by the 7.9% rates increase, which means the savings, which the Mayor's put in, of an extra 20 million up to 106, those savings, along with the growth in our rating base, are offset by the underlying cost pressures, right? So I know what you've said, Morris, but actually, you know, I could argue that the good folk of Ōrākei aren't using the Eastern Busways. Eastern Busway. We are regional councillors, and it's up to us to show to the people of Auckland that this budget is for the people of Auckland. And sometimes, in an annual budget, you might get a bit for your place, and sometimes not. So it's a bit of swings depending on what the project is. The 106 million in savings is a 3.5% rates increase. And that's what we're going to save. And if we didn't save that money, you'd have to add another 3.5% onto the 7.9. So I am supporting the consultation document, and I'm supporting it knowing that the few tweaks that I have highlighted, hopefully Ross, you and co, will emphasise. But I think the bigger question is, or the bigger comment I'm making is to my colleagues, because you can put whatever you like in writing, it's up to you and the way you sell this to your community. We have no choice on the CRL. It has been handed back to us. We can't say no. We've waited it for a hang of a long time, and now we've got it. It comes with some costs. But the good news associated with that is that we're covering a lot of those costs, or making sure that we don't have any extra costs because of the financial stewardship that we're doing behind the scenes. So I'm very happy to lend my vote in support of this consultation document. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Speaking order is Councillor Gillan, followed by Councillor Foley. Councillor Gillan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, like many of you, or all of you, there are some things in this that I like and there are some things in this that I do not like. But what I am extremely concerned about, and has been mentioned already today, is the state of the local board budgets. We all acknowledge, or I think most of us acknowledge, that the fairer funding formula is flawed and there isn't enough money actually going into the pool. Under the proposal in front of us, we have 7 of our local boards will be far worse off under fairer funding. Devonport Takapuna local board will be $600,000 down, Henderson Massey $600,000, Mangere Otahu $1 million, Otara Papatoi $1.6 million, Papakura $800,000, Upper Harbour $700,000, and Waitemata $1 million. These figures are from December, they may have changed slightly. But that adds up to about $6 million. Those are the 7 local boards that are worse off after the fairer funding allocations. There are also other local boards that did receive money under fairer funding, but are going to be receiving, having a lot of that clawed back, as we've heard from others, including, Albert Eden's going to be down $800,000 from what they should be allocated, Franklin $600,000, Great Barrier $100,000, Hibiscus and Bays $500,000, Howick $1.1 million, Kaipatiki $1.5 million, Manurewa $900,000, Oraki $400,000, Puketapapa $700,000, Rodney $1.1 million, Waiheke $400,000, Waitakere Rangers $300,000, and Fo $800,000. And this is why the local boards are so angry with us at the moment, because the fairer funding model just does not work and we haven't put enough money into it. The amount to rectify this is either about $6 million to ensure those 7 worse off local boards receive their full entitlement, or about $15 million for all local boards to be receiving their full entitlement. Now, in the grand scheme of things, this is chump change for council. This is within the margin of error in our budgets. There are actually other places where this money could be found. We've heard already from Councillor Turner that potentially the doing things differently budget of $637 million over 10 years, which I believe, after talking to staff, is largely untagged and waiting through consultation with local boards as to how that should be used. There's also projects within that have been delayed. So there's definitely scope for money through that to be reallocated to this when that time comes around. But there are other budgets as well. I'm well aware now that catering across Auckland Council runs into hundreds of thousands of dollars per year, and I'll be revealing information about that in due course. So what we have in front of us now, I'll just read out part of an email that came from the mayoral office last year after a workshops in which I said along the lines of, why are we even asking the local boards to find ways that they can cut their budgets when there's general agreement that would at least put in the $6 million. An email came through, and I'll just quote, given the relative size of the pressures facing those boards who don't receive enough additional operating funding to cover the cost isn't significant, there shouldn't be any need to consult with communities on drastic service cuts. So when I saw the draft of the consultation document that didn't mention this at all, when I went into the drop-in session last week, I was really surprised that there's no mention that we're endeavouring to find that 6 million, so don't worry, local boards, but also that each of the local boards had been required to workshop ways in which they can make drastic cuts. Some of those include slashing library hours, reducing maintenance, cutting funding to third parties that achieve outcomes that are actually cheaper than council, actually better, cheaper and faster than council can do. They're cutting support for volunteers, for the environment programs, and reducing rubbish bins. Not only that, we also have 2 local boards, Otara Papatoe and Mangere Otahu, that are having to propose targeted rates, extra rates in their areas, some of the poorest areas in this city, just to maintain service levels as they currently are. This isn't for new projects they're wanting to reach out and do, it's just to maintain the service levels. So, and one thing we need to bear in mind is that these cost pressures that are causing these issues are not the result of local board decisions. They are largely from contract variations, staff salary negotiations, electricity increases, that sort of thing, which are generally handled at a regional level, or at least the local boards are not able to influence those. We have to remember that we are in a shared governance situation here, and there is a power imbalance. The governing body dictates what local boards are responsible for, and then funds them or underfunds them, as the case may be. So, Mr. Chair, we have wasted local board time through those workshops. We have wasted, or we're about to waste, the public's time because they are now going to be incentivised to submit on how to stop these cuts when we're working down that path anyway. So, thank you very much. I will not be supporting going out for consultation with the document in this state. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Foley.
Kia ora. Thanks, Chair. Look, I agree with pretty much everything Councillor Gillen has said. We've talked about this before around this table, about the fear of funding and the shortfalls that 7 or 8 of our local boards are going to be facing. I support going up for consultation, and of course we have to hear from our residents, but I share those concerns that Councillor Turner and Councillor Gillen have raised about the wording in the document not really painting that true picture of what our local boards are going to be suffering. Now, there is detail from each local board, broken down local board by local board, in the supporting information, but we know, and we've said today around the table, that people are unlikely to read that detail. So a lot of that onus then falls back on us or on the local boards to get that information out. But I think the wording in the document and what Councillor Turner and Councillor Gillen are saying is that the wording in the document is it's not forward enough. It's not making it obvious enough for our everyday reader at the very start of the document, or in a place that's very obvious, to actually say, hey, this is the reality for your local boards. This is how it's going to affect you locally, the shortfall in the fear of funding. Or we are going to do something about it. We've promised, or we've given assurances that we are going to do something about it. And so the local boards may not have to do these things, that they're proposing. And I've been hearing from our local boards since last year about the very anxious time they've been going through, because although we've sat around here and said, yes, we'll cover it, the local boards have been having to go through those workshops and looking line by line at everything before them and making those very, very difficult decisions. And we've seen that. Councillor Gillen has very comprehensively outlined a lot of those. Discontinuing some programs in some areas. Libraries being shut down on certain days of the week in order to meet those shortfalls. And of course, the targeted rates in my local board areas and our Manukau ward. So I absolutely share those concerns. I'm just sitting here now thinking about whether or not to support it going out in its current form. I do accept that you can make minor changes, but what Councillor Turner and Councillor Gillen are talking about are not necessarily minor changes. And I accept too that, what you've said, Chair, you've given us the assurance in your answer to Councillor Turner that although it's worded in this very neutral manner, there is scope for people to give the feedback around that. And I do note that in the local board part of the information, the questions are very open-ended. They basically say, what do you think about these shortfalls? What do you think about these reductions? What do you think about the targeted rate? And invite our residents to give any answers that they wish to that. So I appreciate that's there, that it's very open-ended. So I'm just sitting here thinking about the very strong arguments put forward by my neighbours here, as well as the need for us to go out for consultation, and I'm just thinking about it and mulling it over. But I do hope that in the next step, as Councillor Turner has said, because that's his concern, is that in the next step, he'll be chastised for bringing it up. And I hope that everyone remembers this conversation then when we get to that next step. Should it go out in its current form, and I think it will because it's got support around the table, that we remember those concerns being raised today by Councillor Turner and the assurances given by staff, but also by yourself, Chair. Kia ora. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Foley. Councillor Newman.
Chair, I didn't expect that we would have a discussion about the optics of the impact of the operating cost of the CRL and how it affects the bottom line general rate increase. I didn't expect we would have that discussion because we know that the City Rail Link will have a consequential impact on the rates increase. But the reality is that even if the public doesn't understand that, and we do, and you know, we have to carry the impact of that because it's a cost that we can't avoid. It kind of reminds me of what I consider to be some of the less helpful times during the early times of Mayor Goff, when rather than point to the combined impact of all the targeted rates, we would say, well, the general rate increase is very, very small, but there's these new target rates plus. I always found those arguments quite disingenuous. So I take on board what Councillor Williamson has said, and I think that to try and tweak the optics of this because of the City Rail Link, I don't think it's that helpful, and I don't think that we're going to be rewarded for it. Coming to what Councillor Gillen has said, look, I don't disagree with Councillor Gillen, and I think that what he will need to do, because I think that he will find support around the table, is after the submissions are received, and we've had local board feedback on that, is to canvass for support for subsequent amendments. Because I think that there will be a need for some further amendments to address some of the issues that have been identified. And I do think it's, clearly the local boards are not going to be easily able to wear all of the changes that have been identified, and they are having to go through workshops which are tough. But from my experience, being able to canvass colleagues around what would be a necessary adjustment to capture their support would be a helpful start. So I'll vote for this to go up to amendment, but I'm expecting Councillor Gillen, I'll go up for the consultation, but I'm expecting Councillor Gillen to canvass for changes, and we will have a further debate on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I think that's helpful. Is anybody else who wants to comment? Yes. Worship.
I sort of hesitate to go into this heated subject, but we did actually make a decision to go to fairer funding. We could have said, and I heard the word entitlement, there was no entitlements. I mean, we made decisions to go to fairer funding. Funding was based on the number of people and with a small amount of variation for the area that you went. If you had a big area, like Rodney, and a small amount of variation on the economic well-being of the people within your area. That sounded fair. That forced some ups and some downs. In terms of the funding, in 224, we spent 254 million on them. We cut some money to the 25. We cut 8 million off that. 26 it went up to 288 million. And 27 it goes up to 308.5 million. It's been going up. There's nobody's got less. They might have got less than they think that they need, but that's not less. It is less than you want. So I don't want to hear anyone saying there's been a cut. A cut is less money. It's not less than you think you're entitled to. They've all got more. So don't use things like that. I had to put that bloody Chris Carter going on about less. I need to point out that he got quite a lot more. So less than what you wish for is not less. There are a lot of people out there with businesses who are getting a hell of a lot less than they wish for. There was 1.5 pages full of company closures last week. And so we've got to be, if we are going to be honest, we've got to be honest. And honest is, it's gone from 288 to 308.5. Everyone's got a bit more. It may be less than what you expected. You may have to handle some increased costs. Well, that's just the way it is, mate. The government we didn't start inflation. Yeah, I'm just trying to point that out. So I know you're concerned about it. You've come out from those areas there, but bit of a harsh inspection on some of the spends in some of the our areas it takes a bit of stomaching some of the money that's gone up. So I think the advice is to campaign on behalf of some of them who feel that they have been hardly done by compared to others, because I'm not exactly sure how some of these figures come out of their system of accountants that work for Michael. But I do notice that everyone's got a bit more, with the possible exception of Papakura, who've got the same amount. I've got the numbers here. And so if you want to go back to unfair funding for your mates, we'll put that forward as a solution. But we went to fairer funding, and local boards are getting more than they've each year, and more again. But it may not be as much as everybody wants. And the idea that it's just a small bucket, everyone's got to make some savings somewhere or other. All right, I'll leave that to it, but I'm going to support this. And we will hear from those areas who feel they're hardly done by, and we'll listen to that. And if we hear for a demand to go back to unfair funding, I'll be happy with that, if that's what everybody else wants on their own. But I was a constant chorus from people like you, Councillor Philly, how unfair funding was bad. So we went to fair funding, and now that's even worse, apparently.
Not for our local boards.
I don't get that. Fair sounds a good idea to me, and I was quite happy to support everybody's view on fairer funding.
Division.
308.5.
I was waiting. Yeah, I was. Okay, are there any more comments or debate, team? So it's not okay. Well, look, it's been moved and seconded, so we'll put it by division. Also noting if people want to vote for it but note against A, B or C, they can also do that as well. So we'll do this on resolve. That should come through in a second.
Okay, members, we're going to start the vote now. Okay, members, that vote is carried 14 votes to 3, and there are 2 members not present.
And I voted for it too, Sandra. Okay, I declare that carried then. Yep. All right. On to the last item. Move it. Last item, 8.3, summary of information. There's really no discussion on this. It's been moved by Councillor Baker, seconded by Councillor Williamson. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. All those against? Carried. All right, that brings us to the conclusion of the meeting. Well done, everyone. And I'll declare the meeting closed. Thank you for your participation.